Just to say a word this morning about Don Bosco and his devotion to Our Lady. When at the age of 9 or 10 he had his famous dream, a woman appeared in the dream whom he didn't recognize or know as Our Lady at the time. That understanding came much later in his life. But the man in the dream had said to him, "I will give you a teacher, and under her guidance you can become wise. Without it, all wisdom is foolishness." And then, as all dreams are full of symbol, she showed him a scene, and the scene was full of wild animals. There was bears, goats, dogs, all sorts of wild animals in the scene. And then she said to him, "This is your field of work. Make yourself humble, brave, and persevering, and what you will see happening to these animals in a moment is what you must do for my children." And then she said to him, "Look again at the field." And he looked again at the field, and all the animals had changed into bleating lambs who were frolicking and extremely friendly. So that was the dream, that was the symbolism. So what was he to make out of it? And of course, at the time, he didn't know. But after his ordination in 1841, he went into the slums of northern Turin, and the slums were really a terrible place. In fact, the main sewer that was running from the centre of the town was open at its end before it flowed into the river. There was epidemics of all sorts in Turin at the time: typhus, cholera, and smallpox, and there were a lot of other diseases. In fact, the average age in the city of Turin at that time in the 1840s was 35. So an enormous amount of young people died at that time. It was when Don Bosco went in there and he saw the young people and the state they were in that it began to dawn on him that this was the field that the woman in the dream was talking about. So it was in that place, in those slums, that he set up his first oratory. Now, in the oratory, it was bigger than a youth club. It was also a school. It was a place of learning. And when he set it up there in 1843 or 44, just about a quarter of a mile away, there was a large gunpowder factory. And around it, there were 3 big warehouses. And in 1852, the factory exploded. And the explosion was so great that it could be heard for 15 miles away. And not only that, but the warehouses caught fire. Bosco's oratory was very, very badly damaged, but they managed to curb the flames before the 3rd warehouse went up. And in the 3rd warehouse, which was nearer to the oratory, there were 800 barrels of gunpowder. And if it had exploded, the whole oratory would really have been demolished, and there would have been death and injuries. But as it was, they were able to block the flames or put out the flames before it reached the 3rd warehouse. And Don Bosco attributed that they were saved, and his building and boys and himself were saved, to Our Lady. And it was to Our Lady under the title of Our Lady of Consolation that he attributed this safety. And he was so convinced that it was Our Lady that he actually printed 5,000 leaflets with the picture of Our Lady of Consolation on the leaflet. And at the top of the picture, he said, "In peril and danger, turn to Mary." And beneath it, he wrote a little verse, and it said, "We, from the ignited gunpowder, through your mercy spared, at your feet, great Virgin, give thanks, bowed in veneration." And so he had this incredible devotion that was Our Lady that saved him. And so that was the one title that was very strong with him. The other title under which he venerated Our Lady was of the Immaculate Conception, because, as you know, the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception came in the 1850s, 1854, I think. And so he had a great devotion to Our Lady too, under the title of Mary Immaculate. And in fact, it was to that title that he attributed all his work, that all his significant works began, he would say, under the patronage of Mary Immaculate, that she was the one who helped his works. And then in the 1860s, the Italian Revolution was going on right through the 1850s, and people prayed to Our Lady for protection, and they prayed under the title of Mary, Help of Christians. And so the title of Mary, Help of Christians became very popular, and even more so after 1862, when an image of Our Lady in Spoleto, on the wall of an old church, I suppose something like Knock, spoke to a young child. And of course, this gave huge impetus to the devotion of Mary, Help of Christians. And Don Bosco adopted this title, and it became his favorite title, though he never dropped Mary Immaculate. And when he built the Basilica of Our Lady, Help of Christians in Turin, the picture of Our Lady, Help of Christians is within the Basilica, but in the pinnacle of the Basilica, it's Mary Immaculate. So we have those two twinned. And we as Salesians, when we formally address Our Lady, we say, Our Lady as Immaculate Virgin, Help of Christians, foundress and support of our congregation. We still keep the two titles together. But whatever title we venerate Our Lady by, it's still Our Lady. So in his later years, Bosco used to say, pray to her and you will see what miracles are. And over the years, she had shown him exactly what was to be his field of work. And with her help, he had grown from being a beginner to an extraordinary master.